It's Bible study time. Let's get into it. Today we are going to go into the deep layers that you will find in John chapter 8. Funny enough, the more that I read this story, and lately like many other stories, the more layers I am able to find and peel back. So I'm sure most of us know the story by now. In this video, I will explain one of these many extra layers. This is the story of the Pharisees, the scribes, bringing this woman before Jesus who was caught in the act of adultery. How did these supposed holy men catch this woman doing adultery, like in the act of adultery? So that's already very sus. But then if we go to verse 5, now in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. What then do you say? The beauty in here is that there is so much irony. The law, the Old Testament law, the Torah, says if there is a man who commits adultery with another man's wife, the one who commits adultery with his friend's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall be put to death. So it is both the man and the woman, yet the scribes and the Pharisees only bring the woman before Jesus. So this is how you know there's something shady going on. And again, there's an ironic part to this because they are not following the law that they want to use against Jesus. Because again, they only bring the woman before him, not the woman and the man. So now I want to show you guys how extremely intelligent these scribes and Pharisees are when it comes to being deceitful. Now, according to Roman law, when Rome was overseeing Israel, none of the Jews could actually put anyone to death. That was up to the Roman government. In fact, we see this in the Gospels. For example, in John 18, Pilate is speaking to the Jews and he's saying, "Take him yourselves and judge him according to your law." But the Jews said to him, "It is not lawful for us to put anyone to death." And they are correct. They could not do this. This is the Roman law of sedition. Only Rome is allowed to put anyone to death. So I really want you guys to pay attention to this because they are giving Jesus two options. And either option is a lose-lose for Jesus. If Jesus says, "No, do not put the woman to death," they will try to use passages such as Leviticus 20 against Jesus and rile up the crowds against him and accuse him of being a false prophet. Because how could you claim to be a person from God if you cannot follow the law? I mean, this is how they used to think in the first century. So if Jesus said, "No, do not put the woman to death," they were going to use the Torah, the law of Moses, against Jesus, even though they were being biased and they were already twisting scripture against Jesus. Now, if Jesus said, "Yes, put the woman to death, let's stone this woman," then rather than using the Torah, the Old Testament law against Jesus, they would have used the Roman law against Jesus. And they would have snitched on Jesus and said, "Look, this man is trying to put a woman to death. It is not lawful for him to do so. You guys have to get rid of him." So no matter what answer Jesus gave, if he said yes or no, they would have trialed him against the law of Moses, the Torah, or they would have trialed him against the law of the Romans, the law of sedition. This is why the answer that Jesus gives is just so brilliant. He says, "Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw the stone at her." So now he's pointing the finger back to the religious authorities, and he is also challenging them at the same time. And they couldn't take an action because all of them are, of course, very sinful people. So Jesus completely flips the table on them even though they were trying to trap him with a lose-lose situation. Jesus, of course, being God, finds a way to completely turn the tables upside down and flip the mirror back to them. So again, this is one of those examples from scripture that we might read, and usually we might read it on a surface level and we just keep scrolling, we keep moving forward. But there are so many layers just behind this story alone. So if you want me to go even deeper, I can go ahead and do so. For example, I can make a video about why Jesus writes on the sand in this exact story. This is why we need to read scripture, applying discernment, and never assuming that we know the full picture. Always coming in with a humble heart and a humble soul to listen and fully grasp and understand what scripture is trying to get to us. And I have talked about this in the past. The beauty of scripture is that it is fully accessible to people at all sorts of ages and types of education levels. You know, maybe you learned how to read a few months ago. You can pick up the Gospels and you will still understand the story, but you could also be at a scholarly level, and then you can peel back all of these layers that are not hidden, but they are waiting for you to peel them back. And so you are rewarded if you want to dive deeper into the Holy Scriptures. So I pray this was fruitful to you and you were able to learn something new from the story. And ultimately, I pray that we all give this glory back to our God as He rightfully deserves it all.